Hi, my name is Angie, and I've decided to start a vlog. The first subject that I'm choosing to discuss with you is something that is very near and dear to my heart. That is premature labor and infant death. The reason that this subject is so close to my heart is because I have experienced it firsthand. 5 years ago, I was in school to get a culinary arts certification. Well, while I was in school, I ended up getting pregnant for the very first time. And I remember when I took the test, my initial thought was it was wrong. It was broken. And then after that, I was kind of overwhelmed with anxiety and fear and excitement and love, and just it was 1,000 emotions all in one moment that just overtook my body. And anyone that's ever been pregnant, you know what I'm talking about. I had to tell the father, who I didn't know as well as I should have known, and I had to tell my parents, who didn't know him at all. And my mother took it particularly hard. My father was very hurt by it. He couldn't look at me. He couldn't understand why I would make the decision to get pregnant at a time when I was supposed to be getting an education, a time where I didn't have any responsibility. My mother, she was just angry and hurt because I chose to get pregnant, and she trusted me to be getting an education, and she felt as though I betrayed her trust. Eventually they got over it though, and were very supportive. I started going to doctor's appointments, taking prenatal vitamins, doing all those things that you do to take care of a baby the best way that I could. But one thing I shouldn't have done was I went back to school to try to finish, because I was almost done when I found that I was pregnant. And I wanted to get it finished and, say to my child that mommy did it, you can do it. Well, 5 months into my pregnancy, I ended up having lots of cramping and back pain and going into labor. And I will never, if I live 1,000 years, I will never forget the day that my son was born. I woke up that morning and I took a shower. And I remember my stomach hurt, and I called my mom and I told her I didn't feel well. But because we were states and states apart, she told me there was really not much she could do for me. Just try to take it easy. And I got dressed for class, and I remember that was supposed to be my last day there. I called my boyfriend and I told him I wasn't feeling well. He told me, okay, we'll go see the nurse. And I said, okay. And then I waited for him for what seemed like an eternity to get dressed and come out of the dorm. Eventually, when he did, we were going to walk up there, but I was just in so much pain I couldn't. I remember getting up to go walking and having such a strong pain in my back that my legs gave out from under me, and I felt like I couldn't stand. I couldn't move. They took me to see the nurse, and they called me right in the back. And I remember seeing all these terrified looks on all the nurses' faces and crying because I knew something was wrong. But everybody was telling me it's okay, just stay calm, it's going to be all right. And they called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. And when the ambulance came, I asked them what was wrong, what's going on. Nobody would tell me anything. And as soon as we got to the hospital parking lot, I remember telling the ambulance driver that something was coming out of me. And I remember him arguing with me that, no, not at all. And at that very moment in time, when they went to take me into the hospital, my water bag broke inside the ambulance. And I remember hearing it gush all over the floor. And then eventually doctors came out into the ambulance and took me in. And about 15 minutes after they got me into a room, my son was in this world. I remember there was complete silence around me. And I asked one of the nurses, and is the baby okay? And she said, yes, the baby's fine. I need you to focus. I need you to push, to push the afterbirth out. But that wasn't my concern. My concern was, why was this child not crying? So I asked the nurse, did I have a boy? Did I have a girl? And she said, you had a little boy. And showed me that if I didn't cooperate, they would, force. Anyway, so he wasn't crying. And that was just scary. So all these doctors come in and they start looking at my son and touching my son and tinkering with him. And then this doctor comes and he says to me as he hands me my child, I'm sorry, he's just too small. He's just not going to make it. His lungs are not developed enough. His stomach isn't developed. He's just not going to make it. And at that moment in time, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react. I really didn't. It was just like a what kind of thing. And right after that, one of the nurses said that the father of the child wanted to come in the room. Was I okay with that? So I said, yeah. And when he walked into the room, I knew that I was going to have to tell him that our son just wasn't going to make it. How I was going to form those words, I had no idea. How I was going to relay that message, I didn't know. When he walked into the room, I know I was crying. And I think I may have whispered it to him that our son just wasn't going to make it. And after he came in the room, this woman came in the room and she said that she was there from the church. Was there anything she could do for me? And I remember getting my son baptized. Then they moved us to a different room and I called my mom, and I remember her doing everything in her power to come to me that very same day. And she couldn't. And the next day, her and my sister were able to come out to Kentucky, which is where I was, and get me. And as soon as I saw my mom, it was just devastating to me. The day that my son was born, I held him the entire time. Every minute of his life, he was in my arms. I remember when he started to get cold. I remember being afraid. I remember when the nurses told me that he had passed away. And I remember at that very moment in time, the world stopped spinning. And part of me died. My life will never be the same. I will never be the same. I was just so angry at God and at myself and at the world because my child had died. My child. Why my child? There are so many children in this world that are starving and abused and hurting, and I loved my son. Why my son? And that's still something that I wonder from time to time. But I realize that I will never have an answer. There are many mothers that lose their children that will never have an answer for why that child, why my child. And, it's okay that I don't know. It's obviously a part of God's plan. And, I can't see it or understand it, but that's not my place to see it or to understand it. I grieved for a very long time for my son. There are still days and moments where I grieve. There are still times where it just overtakes me and overwhelms me. I think about my son so often. I think about the fact that he will be 5 years old this year. I think about the fact that he would start school this year. I wonder what his eyes look like because they were never opened. I wonder what his cry would sound like because I never heard it. I wonder what his first words would have been or when he would have taken his first steps. I wonder what colors he would have liked or what movies, what shows, what cartoons. I wonder so many things about my son on a day-to-day basis. Still. And I know that, he's safe and he'll never hurt and he'll never be hungry. But selfishly, I still want my son. And I don't think that'll ever change. I think any mother who loses a child will forever pine for that child. Since then, I've had 2 more children, and I love motherhood. I love it more than anything in this world. I was truly designed and destined to be a mom. For all you women out there who have lost a child and are grieving, are still grieving, it's okay. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to scream and yell and be mad at God. It's perfectly okay. I've done it. What got me through was God. As angry as I was and as much as I yelled at God, I prayed. And God was with me even in my darkest hours. He was there. And I am thankful to God. I'm thankful to God for all of my children and everything in my life, even if I can't understand why my son had to be the one that was taken. Thank you for your time, and I will post more videos soon. Not all of them will be this sad. Have a good night.